Happy New Year, Crossroads of Cognizance family. We're back with with 2022 in the making. So, if you haven't been with us through the last half of 2021, welcome to the show. This is a broadcast where we talk about what's happening on the West Coast, the East Coast, the trends that merge us both in the middle, and give practical advice about living spiritually, magically, and our own experiences and the ways in which we help other people. On this broadcast, I am Dahlia Rose over here at Crystal Cognizance, and holding the fort down on the east or the west coast rather is
I'm Katrina Rasbold. I'm at Crossroads Metaphysical Store, and we are so excited to be here for 2022. I had the privilege of working with Dahlia sporadically through last year and then quite a bit in the last half of the year, which pleases me to no end. She's one of my favorite partners to just get together and talk about magic with, and that's what we're going to be doing with you and with each other. So we really encourage you to jump in on the comments. We do read our comments, not just during the broadcast, but also when the events are archived afterwards. We will come back and answer your questions and address your comments. So feel free to join in. We're always glad to hear from you. So how are things
sure.
out east? What's going on?
What's going on? Uh, well, there's been a power outage and massive snowstorms. So for those of you that are watching us by candlelight, if you are watching, so sorry that's happening, and hang in there because we have another storm coming tomorrow. Um, but other than that, it's been an interesting couple of days in January. I don't know about you, but it definitely feels like January sort of drags. It feels like the last inches of 2021 are just holding on as much as they can, and then they finally let go. But this gives us an opportunity to really tap into something you brought up, Katrina, which was refresh and renewal. So, can you tell us a little bit more about that kind of theme that you're seeing?
We assign arbitrary importance to certain times. And some of that used to be surrounding the agricultural year. So we knew that Beltane, for instance, around the 1st of May was a time of fertility for the animals and conception for the animals, and also a time of fertilizing what we've planted in the fields in the spring. And so there are certain agricultural tidbits, but then we just get super arbitrary and we just said, okay, this is going to be the beginning of the new year. And we delineated that December 31st, January 1st mark. And so people begin to have this feeling of renewal. And for a lot of us, that comes in the springtime. For some of us, that comes at our birthday of our next year. But for a lot of people, that really hits on January 1st. They're signing up for those gym memberships they're not going to use, and they're making all those promises to themselves. They're all about what they're going to manifest in January. And so to do that, they want to have a clean house. They want to have a clean altar space. And so we have a lot of people coming in who are renewing their altars, who are cleaning those off and getting new altar tools up. We have people that want to banish certain things that we're hanging on. Like you said, 2021 has its talons in us and is trying to drag us back into the ick if we had that there. And people want to do those cut and clear spells so that they're not having that energy carrying forward with them from traumas that happened and challenges that they had. And so we've seen a lot of sales of Chinese wash and Four Thieves vinegar and the floor washes. The sage has been moving like crazy. We sold out of Palo Santo. So just lots of cleansing and cleaning and clearing going on to get ready for the manifestation of the coming year is what we've been seeing as one of our trends.
I can definitely empathize on the trend from a different perspective. Is on the East Coast here, at least as far as my shop's concerned, and how we serve the public. It's been less about the tools. They've been in there, but it's been more about, how do I clean myself, signing up for the healing sessions, and people trying to move through those things, and the sense of urgency, like, hey, I need to dust myself off from 2021, walk into 2022 clear. And so I found myself doing a lot of assistance work on that end, to kind of couple with perhaps what people were doing at home, as you were mentioning with the tools and the renewal of altars and such. Um, so it's been a bit of cleansings, a bit of readings. You know, what does the year have for me? That's been a really popular theme. And telling people, I I struggle with that a bit when people have not set themselves up with like an opportunity for something different. So that was a big theme with this refresh and renewal process. It was like I'm coming for the renewal of the 2022 year, and I'd like a reading to find out what my year is going to be, and it was more of the same. And so then doing cleansing afterward, and finding out, sort of reiterating, like you were mentioning, hey, your birthday hasn't happened yet. Hey, this is sort of a false rush into newness, but so you don't have to feel like you missed it, kind of thing.
That's
So,
so true. And what people really miss when they are looking at those time investments is nothing really happened. I mean,
lots of parties.
yeah, you have a birthday, and that's great. Happy birthday. You are now 36 instead of 35. Fantastic. But you still live in the same house. You're still seeing the same people. You're still working the same job. What? Whoa, hi. You're still having the same webcam.
All right, I don't know if you can still hear me.
I can't see you. I can't hear you.
Okay, all right,
Hey, now
there I
you're back.
am.
There you are. Hi. So we're still doing the
Transformation.
same things. Nothing really changed between December 31st and January 1st. And that's like I was saying, it's an arbitrary thing that humans decided. And when we're dealing with magic and energy, there's no time. That doesn't honor a clock. That doesn't honor a calendar. So, really, if you're expecting your life to be totally different just because we tore a page off the calendar or we circled a day on a calendar, that's really not how it works because manifestation and energy doesn't care about dates. We care about dates.
Exactly. In fact, I had somebody wanting me to check on a spell this week that they did 24 hours before. Does this change the outcome? And I was like, you might want to give that a bit more time. Let it settle, and then maybe check in with the witch that did the work, so that I'm not interfering. And so it was interesting. It's interesting, our framework around time. And to your point of work and tools, there was an interesting connection, um, a question that comes up for you every couple of years, and something that I was seeing a theme with, um, across different social networks, TikTok primarily, but and a theme that ends up in my shop every now and again, which is working with spiritual tools, as an access point for, opening your third eye, or um, uh, enhancing different aspects of our lives. And being a crystal seller, um, it the questions come up, is this going to open my third eye? And we had a little bit of a chat about that. And personally, I think that as far as crystals are concerned, they're great allies, they're great partners, and I work with them pretty much every day in my own personal life and on others. Um, but I sort of am seeing, at least in myself, maybe in others, that, there is a segue away from the concept that it will give you sort of, give you like superpowers, and reframing it into, when you're in, when you're misaligned, when you're in a low vibration space, it may be that the crystal then helps you stand up where you are not upright, where you're out of balance. That's where the crystals and the energy in their work comes back in. So, that was sort of my stance on spiritual tools. What were you seeing, Katrina?
You know, we both see people who think that that rock is going to give them superpowers. They think that that moldavite that they spent, $70 on is going to be the answer that's going to fix everything. And as Kay said, people want a quick fix. They don't want to have to invest their own energy and their own power and their own time and effort into making that change. They want the rock to do it. And you pointed it out very well that that's great to use to accessorize and to build what you're already doing, but it doesn't need to create it from nothing, and you shouldn't get too reliant on that specific tool. It makes me think of when I was younger. My brother was 5 years younger than me, and when he learned to walk, he walked holding my mother's hand. And as soon as he let go of my mother's hand, his ass would go right on the floor. He could not walk unless he was holding her hand. So what she did is she handed him a spoon, and he would walk around holding that spoon in the air, looking like the Statue of Liberty, and would walk like a pro as long as he had that spoon. But if he dropped the spoon, or somehow the spoon wasn't in his hand, down he went. He couldn't walk. He was immobile without his spoon. But give him the spoon and he would hold it up and just walk like mad. And people treat their tools that way, that, oh my gosh, without this athame or without this crystal, my third eye is just closed, or I can't work without this grounding stone. And it's not that tools aren't fantastic. They are, but not as they don't possess your power.
Right.
They can guide it, they can assist it, but they are not the source. They aren't your anti-kryptonite, so to speak.
And I think that Hollywood sort of plays a role in all of this, right? You have the person that goes out and they do the quest and they find the thing, and then the thing, whenever they don't have the thing. I mean, I myself was just watching, spending some quality time with family and rewatching episodes of The Flash, and it was episodes where they kept finding these tools that would enhance people, and this is a theme for our humanity, because it's not just tools. It's the class, it's the certificate, it's the station in life that we believe makes us who we are. And I think in 2022, it was almost like 2020 showed us where we were. 2021, everybody was reaching for everything, just glomming onto it. Wait, let me try this, let me try that. And 2022 is where you get to put it into practice. I thought that was 2021. I thought 2021 would be practice year, and it was not. It was like, no, you're still going through it.
One of
You're
the
still
things I
shedding.
really saw for 2021, I saw a phenomenal just outbreak of alliances being made and broken. And I saw
Mm,
long-term friendships and alliances that fractured irreparably, putting those people on completely different trajectories. And I saw alliances being made that really feel like they're super solid. And so I really think that where 2020 or 2019 brain, 2020 was really defining us and finding our feet and figuring out who we were, because we were so isolated. We were uh, uh, brain quarantined, and we really had to deal with ourselves, and we had to deal with our partners, because a lot of times our health of a partnership is based on the fact that we don't really see each other that much. And so suddenly we're being quarantined with people and having to manage those relationships up close and personal. And that had a fallout into 2021 where, well, what do I really want to do to spend my time with certain people or not? So there was a lot of rearranging of relationships during that time. And now I think that's why that feeling of refreshing and renewal is there, because as we move into 2022, and Kay is rightfully pointing out that one of the things that does happen with dates is we get a numerological injection of energy.
absolutely.
And so that does give a little bit different feel to things. And I think that that is bringing up, as she brought up, the meet yourself. Where are you? Who are you? What are you doing? And how are you going to put the last 2 years into action? Because those years were formative in your life
Hmm.
path, in yourself. Now that you're who you are, what are you going to do with all that?
Exactly. And to your point of fractures in relationships in 2021, there were a lot of false connections that were formed in 2022 in an effort not to be alone in quarantine. And now those relationships are stepping into real serious territory as natural next steps, but they weren't founded on um, you know, real solid ground. And so I am actually seeing that as a theme as well, as people are coming in and going, what do I do with this person? and and having to have real conversations about, you do what's right for you because you do that person an injustice to do otherwise.
That's
And
so true. That's true.
yeah.
But
Uh,
also to your point as well, what happens then is we have to look inside at ourselves. Why are we so lonely and so uncomfortable being on our own that we have to reach out for any relationship that's there
mhm.
and just bring any person in to our intimate space just to not feel alone? Now, we need human connection. We always do. But I see so
Absolutely.
many people that are just not comfortable unless they're in a throng of people, or they've got somebody hearing their every word. They've got an audience at all the time. And so we've
Yep.
got to look at ourselves and say, okay, why was I willing to bring in any relationship just to have a relationship?
As a massive introvert, I like to tout I don't need anybody, and I've been so wrong about that. So very wrong. So if you're in that boat and you're realizing it on either spectrum that you have too many people around you that aren't it's not false or solid, or that it's false or that it's not solid,
Yeah.
um, just know that you're not alone on that boat, and realize that other boats will catch those people.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not as if you are responsible for, well, what if they end up alone or this or that? You are not responsible for that by any means. And it's better than torturing them in a loveless, careless situation, friendship or otherwise. I love Kay's introduction to numerology here. If it's not a subject you've gotten into, it's a deep rabbit hole, but it's so helpful as far as themes go. Now, I wonder if, with what you were seeing for refresh and renewal, aside from the washes, Katrina, is there anything that you find yourself doing when you need those refresh and renewal phases, or anything you would recommend folks
I
try?
always do a lot of journaling, and that a lot
Okay.
of times some of my best insights come when I'm writing something out. And as an author, I do a lot of typing. I'm always at my keyboard, but with my journaling, it's always in longhand. I use the pen to paper. And I also recently had an experience where a friend of mine that lives in a town close to me, but not, I mean, we're maybe an hour and a half away from each other. So we're not right up on each other, but we're within visiting distance. You know her, Nicole. She's in your healing class. Anyway,
Love Nicole.
she mentioned to me, I really miss my Aunt Jenny because we used to write letters to each other, like actual mailed letters. And so to surprise her, I just sent her a letter. And this became us exchanging 2 or 3 letters a week now. And that's been similar to journaling because as I'm writing to Nicole, I'll have thoughts that come. I think we really underestimate the power of automatic writing. And that's
Hmm.
kind of a lost art because we don't really do automatic typing. We do to some degree, but there's something about the flow of penmanship that creates magic in itself. And so when I am trying to cleanse, I make lists, I write notes, I write love letters to myself, I journal about whatever I'm thinking. I'll journal my dismay. I remember a couple months ago writing, I am so beautifully and magnificently broken right now, and just trying to make sense of what's going on. So that's one of the things I'll do is I'll journal, or I'll write a letter to Nicole and just word vomit onto her. I'll also sometimes, I used to take like ritual cleansing baths, and I found that I don't do that anymore. I'll do showers instead. I
Mhm.
love baths, but I got this imagery of just, especially since I started doing the types of healings that I do, when I get in the bath, I feel like the ick comes off of me and then it's all around me in the water. And I don't love
Oh, I
that
see.
feeling. So even
Mhm.
though there's all these healing herbs and things in the water, I feel like, and this is just me, I'm not propagating this idea out into the world. I feel like everything I wash off of me is still lurking there in the water. So I have become a shower person where I just want it to go away and go down the drain. So showering, even just washing my hands, if I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm dealing with a heavy situation, I'll go wash my hands. And I have to, because of my personality type, I have to keep an eye on this that it doesn't become an obsessive behavior. But just
Mm.
wash my hands of a situation or to get rid of a situation. I love rearranging the furniture because that
Yes.
changes how you think and how you process your path. Because if you rearrange the furniture, for me in the store or in my home, you're having to literally walk a different way and look at different things. And that psychologically creates a framework of change immediately. So if you're stuck, if you're in a rut, if you're having trouble moving forward, rearrange your furniture and that will force you to walk a different path. I also will make sure that I eat or drink something different. For me, in the last 2 weeks, it has been hot tea. I don't enjoy hot tea. It's never been something I love, and everybody in my family loves hot tea, and it's just
I
not
love
my
hot tea.
thing. Yeah, my mother actually got an excuse from her doctor to say that she has to drink hot black pico tea and as a prescription, and it was because she married a Mormon man and she was not allowed caffeine. And so she had a doctor's prescription to say that she could drink hot tea. And
Wow.
it's just never been a favorite. And so I forced myself to start drinking hot tea at night because it was something different. And I think that's the biggest cleanse you can have is to force yourself to do something different, not necessarily something unpleasant, just something different. And that's another type of cleanse that you can do. You can also really get extreme and do a fast. I love to
Mm.
do a 24-hour fast. Eric does 5 days at a time
Wow.
of nothing but water. For me, I'll usually have a little bit of broth or some type of warm liquid, but it really helps to reset your relationship with food, for instance, which is where my um, addictions come into play, and it helps me to have a better feeling of being in control.
And we have audience participation here. Carissa says that she goes outside in the grass until she feels better. That's a great healing and cleansing tool. Great grounding
Hmm.
tool as well. You know, when you were talking about journaling, I had this image come to mind of how we set goals in the beginning of the year, and maybe we could reframe that. I mean, can be intense and intimidating, and like you were saying, this time of the year it's about rest a little bit still. There's a sort of a false renewal in the process, but if we reframe this around, how would I refresh a friend, how would I refresh myself, using journaling as a tool, your goals will probably manifest themselves in that automatic writing process, at least I imagine. And then you have an opportunity to also gain some of the emotions around, your what you're seeing. Because I think that the other thing that comes to mind is that while this may be like a false start of the year, the new year, so to speak, there is a call for change. And maybe all this time we've been seeing it as completely flipping your life upside down and changing and setting goals, when there was a cleansing element that was being missed. And that brings balance to the process in some way, shape, or form, so that when spring arrives, the changes you're desiring can blossom.
I
Um,
think that's why it doesn't work. I
Mm,
think that's why we have so much failure of New Year's goals. It's because it's not time for that right now. We are still
right.
in the depth of winter. We're supposed to be hibernating. We're supposed to be in our homes, secure around the fire, sharing stories, eating warm nurture food, checking outside only to make sure that livestock are okay and that everything is where it's supposed to be, and then going right back inside. This isn't a time of activity. Activity comes with spring equinox. And
Right.
so this is still a time of contemplation and processing and really evaluating the previous year and planning for the coming year. So this is a great time to think about goals. It's a great time to make a list. It's a great time to submit that list to the god and goddess or whatever higher power you use and say, "Hey, is this something that would be good for me?" And then watch the signs that come up and see if it guides you to or away from those ideas. So it's a contemplative time. It's not a time of activity yet. And
Right.
so our bodies don't want to go out and make, and our spirits don't want to make huge change when there's 6 feet of snow outside.
Right.
So,
Let me tell you, literally on the East Coast right now in the DC
yeah,
area.
my son's snowed
But
in right now. So, yeah,
to your point of using cleanses and that momentary check outside, use that time to take out the trash. You don't necessarily need to fill that void with something new, but you can, you know, declutter and just get it out of the way in little small brackets as needed, right? So,
absolutely. Absolutely. So, one of the things that we were talking about, I'm going to jump back just a little bit. When we're talking about decluttering, one of the things that tends to happen if you're like me is you become kind of a magical hoarder. And my friend Wolf, who's an amazing mage, he does this huge purging process once every year or two, where he just ruthlessly Marie Kondos everything in his house and even items that were very sacred to him. He just says, I haven't used this in a couple years, it's going away. And he just starts gifting this to people that he feels called to give these things to. And so he's constantly downsizing. I've always admired that. Of course, I had the downsizing of my own, the involuntary one that happened. So I'm having that experience of starting from baseline up. And so this is a great time, as you were saying, to really also consider what, I mean, don't keep things because you might need them one day. Really look around and see what in your life is functional and is serving you. And then think about taking some of that stuff away to make room for what's to come in. One of the metaphors that we use is that you can't pour into a cup that's already full. And if a cup stays full, the stuff that's in there is going to get stagnant. We need constant movement. And so
absolutely.
we release things in order not only to give someone else a chance to enjoy those things, but to also make room metaphorically for new things and sometimes literally for new things to come into our lives. And with your tools, that's really something that you can look at because, as you were talking about, certain tools really lift us during those down times. But when we aren't down anymore, do we still need those tools?
Right.
And is this altar arrangement I've had for 5 years still representative of who I am? And what do I need to change out? And I can tell you that when you do start working with newer tools, you start to really find that there's a different energy to what you do. So you want to make absolutely sure the tools you're surrounding yourself with um,
Evolve with you.
support what you're doing and enhance what you're doing.
Yeah. I'm again, I could reach to my left right now and pick up at least 6 crystals. Will they be with me in 6 years? I definitely, much like Wolf's practice, um, purge some of my crystals. It will never be crystal skulls. So everybody who's seen what I have and is hoping, put that to bed because it's never going to be not the skulls, but the others. They will find their homes, and you know, if there, I think it transcends the tools as well. I mean, when one of the things that we were sharing with each other was manifestation. We've talked about that on this show before, and you know, as Katrina was saying, you have to have the space in order for certain manifestations to be created. Um, there's a lot of talk of that on places like TikTok. Well, you can manifest this or you can manifest that, and how do I manifest beauty and how do I manifest money and how do I, and I think I've shared this before. You end up trying to take the same old stuff with you on that journey when that stuff doesn't match what you're asking for. And so and the resistance to letting it go creates pain in the process. And so, these brackets of purging that can take place even in the winter time where you are making space, consider consider the lighter feelings, consider the freedom to move around. And one thing that as you were talking, Katrina, about trusting the universe, trust that the stuff, like if you see something out there that you want, trust that it will be there when you're ready to receive it. I think that's a big thing that gets missed is there may not be space in my life for this right now, but I know when the time comes, I'm going to be able to, have this or have something similar. And that comes with people too.
Mm,
There is an opportunity, a revolving door of opportunities for you to connect with types of people. I've heard countless stories about people who were like, oh, well, I met so and so here, and then suddenly we were in the same place somewhere else, and we met again. In fact, Katrina has that story. So,
I
you know.
do. With you. Dahlia,
So
one of the places I see that manifest more than anywhere else is in manifesting love. And I see so many people that are in relationships that are unfulfilling, and we can create a spectrum there of anything from just boredom and lack of fulfillment and lack of connection to outright abuse, but really undesirable relationships. And they just will not leave until they have manifested somebody else that's a side piece or that they know can be assured is interested. And then they're comfortable letting go of that relationship for another one because they know they're not going to have to be alone for any period of time. And I see so many people staying in these relationships where nobody's happy being there just because it's better than not being on your own. And sometimes the cup that you have to empty is yourself. Sometimes you have to let go of a known and a safe relationship in order to have the relationship you feel like you're really looking for. So when you're talking about those connections and making room, I really see people that are unwilling to make room in their personal relationships.
absolutely. And that stems from, and probably this is the theme of everything that we're talking about, right? Because you mentioned it before the show, which is mindset. you know the scarcity mindset, or in terms of love, who's going to love this about me, who's going to love that about me, I might as well settle for the people who just put up with it. And that's not a way to live. And we have this opportunity in the winter time, this refresh and renewal piece, to even renew that relationship with ourselves, to say, okay, I loved what you said about writing love letters to yourself. I mean, I'm going to get off the show and do that to myself. um, because it's not something that's encouraged. You're selfish if you love yourself, but that level of selfishness is so important, so that when you come to the table to say, you know, I want to be in a relationship, it's from a balanced and whole place. And the placeholder for the next relationship is you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, this thing that is draining your life force and soul, making you sick, but it's better than nothing. There's so many opportunities for that self-love.
Mm-hmm. And people
So
are not batons that you just pass, in the relay of life. You know, you need time to relax from one relationship, and like you said, get in your own head, figure out who you are. Each relationship, each deep relationship we have changes who we are to some degree as we integrate ourselves into the life of that person. And it's not that we aren't authentic, it's just that you now have another variable that has come into your life and you're going to respond to that. So we have to
Hmm.
figure out who we are in response to ourselves as opposed to in response to a person that we're living with. And yeah, that's something I see all the time is, and sometimes it's a financial thing of, hey, I literally can't afford to live in a house by myself, and that might be the case. And so people end up in terrible relationships because they have nowhere physically, geographically to go other than to be in that relationship. And so the more that you can just be in your own head and get to know who you are, the better prepared you're going to be in a relationship because you know who you are and what you have to offer.
Exactly, and then you lose nothing. I mean, that's another common theme in these situations is when you fill voids, you push other things out.
Mm,
And it's relationships with people, and even to dial it back to the tools that we were talking about. You may get to a place where the tools are not as necessary as Katrina was saying, and I don't think we quite hit home on the question that you get regarding
you
why do we
do.
need them.
And this is really the case with most material items. And I know that Richard addressed this in a comment as well. Um, I have people frequently, and I, again, every year to 2 years, somebody will come up with this statement of, why do we even need tools at all? Why, if the magic is in us, if it's divine power, if it's personal power, if we're able to manifest that out into productive results and outcomes, why do we need the poppet? Why do we need the rock? Why do we need the powder? Why do we need the spray? Why do we need any of these tools that we have? And here's the reason why. And it's really very simple. Yes, I can draw a straight line. Okay, I can't draw it without a pen or a marker, but I can draw a yes, Wolf, what you're saying, great minds think alike. I can draw a straight line, and if I really focus and put a lot of energy into it, I can draw a better straight line. But you know what? If I've got a ruler, I can whip out a straight line with much less energy invested. If I, which gives me more energy to push because something else is carrying the burden of my straight line. Now, when I use a Hoodoo product, if I'm using a wash that Gladys made, Gladys's energy is in that product. Gladys is literally helping me cleanse my house of negativity. If I use um, a bundle of sage that I know was sourced from an ethical practitioner, then I know the care that they put into wrapping that sage and harvesting it correctly and at the right time. And all of that energy is going to be involved in the cleaning of my house. If I am using a stone that I know has the property to promote truth and honesty and kindness, and I've got it there, that's layering that energy onto it. So let's go to
Mm,
the idea of a money spell. I can sit here and use my energy and divine energy and draw money to me. I can absolutely do that. But we are creatures of visual stimulation and sensual stimulation. And if I have a stone that's green that is given to money drawing properties, or pyrite, which is gold colored, that's going to add another level of energy onto what I'm doing. If I'm burning bay leaves, that's going to add another level of energy onto what I'm doing. If I'm using a money spray, another level of energy. If I'm burning a money candle that somebody put energy into or I put energy into, another level of energy. So I'm adding more and more and more energy to my goals process. And so that just follows good old Newtonian laws that we learned hopefully back in high school or junior high school, of the more force you have applied to an object, the faster it's going to move and the sooner it's going to get to where you want it to be. So, yes, I can sit here in my yoga pants and think really hard and make sure all my chakras are clear and push my energy toward an outcome and get that outcome. But if I'm layering all of these other energetic forces on top of that, it's going to accentuate what I'm doing and get me the result faster and with greater energy sent to it. That's why I use tools. Mic drop.
That's perfect. So not only do we have an opportunity, sorry for that look up. I have a lot of noise going on behind me. Definitely not rolling my eyes because that was powerful. I mean, I came at this with the perspective that when we are in a lower vibration, tools are great to bring us back up, to get us balanced and aligned. But you're right, like Eric Wolf said, you can't nail a nail without a hammer. And
Also,
so,
just I'm going to interject, then hold that spot. Don't forget what you're going to say. Make sure you got the right tool because you can't hammer a nail very well with a freaking banana. So make sure you got the right tool. Go, Dahlia.
well, and leads me to the next thought with these tools. You know, don't shortcut, as we talked about, as it was mentioned, the quick fixes Kay mentioned. you know don't shortchange what you're doing. If you find yourself having to constantly rework that money spell, is there a better tool to use? Is candles the right way to go, or should you go full blown into automatic writing or another form of manifestation, or maybe crystal grids, because you need something to hold that energy steady? Whatever the case is, I love that. Don't use a banana to hammer
Yeah.
a nail. It's going to be very messy. I mean, you might get it, in a couple of years, but damn
If
if it won't
you're
be bananas everywhere.
if you're having to constantly rework your money spell, you might also want to look at it as getting your ass out there and getting a better job. I mean, we as above, so below. We got to do the
Right.
magic, but you got to do the mundane application as well. You've got to not expect that the magic is going to carry all the burden of what you
Hmm.
need to do. And I see that with people all the time. They do spell work and expect the magical UPS truck to just drive up with their little goodie bag. You have to do the work.
Every time. Wait a minute, can't you just dust me off so I can sleep better? No, no. You need to, let's talk about changing your diet, going to bed earlier, decreasing electronics time, maybe not sleeping next to somebody you're super uncomfortable with. Like all of those things. And then we dust you off.
Yeah. Dusting off is great and it helps and it's so important. And if we're doing all those mundane things, you might the dusting off might be what tips it over. But you don't do that just so you can get by with all this malbehavior in regard to sleep.
Right. It's not
Yeah, it's
Tylenol.
not a free, it ain't your Willy Wonka golden ticket. You got to still do the stuff you need to do.
Right. And that sort of sustainable spirituality is so important. I think we're going to see a lot more of that in 2022 as well, because 2021 it was like, okay, well, yeah, manifestation spell and do this and do that, and people kept seeing like spurts of opportunity but not seeing the consistency. There is an opportunity for flow. Yes, you're still going to have hardship and bad times and bad timing, but the impact is going to be different. The opportunities are going to be different through the process and after. And we aren't here to avoid anything, guys. We're here to live life.
Now, you
So,
speaking of living life, you just did a TikTok immersion,
did
and
I?
you went into TikTok and were
Oh, yeah.
researching, doing the TikTok recon. And so you one of the things you brought up is that there's a heavy push towards manifestation. And so I'm guessing that that's to the exclusion of the practical things one might do. And maybe that's just me thinking poorly of others or something, but that How's that presented? Because I'm not a TikToker, or I'm sure there's a special little name for that. But what is how is it going? Because that's the pulse of the magical community now is TikTok. What's going
It
on out in
it
TikTok
truly
land,
is.
Dahlia?
There's so much. It's a bit of a desert wasteland, right? Well, maybe not even a desert wasteland. There's plenty to grab onto.
I'm picturing Mad
But
Max, is what I'm seeing.
so thank you for I was like, wait, and then yeah, I it's clearly something I was trying to forget that I did. But I went on there and it's worth looking at, guys. I just saw Richard say he avoids it.
Yeah.
You know, we it's worth looking at. Lots of themes around manifestation and quick spells and do this and do that, and people saying, well, you don't have to cleanse from this thing. You just have to manifest something different. And
Whoa.
thinking that these right, thinking that those two things don't go hand in hand. Also, themes of people involving themselves in spell work or manifestation work where they don't have a full understanding of energetic transfer. Um, Trying to impact people's free will was a large theme. And not realizing that when you do that, you impact people on multiple levels, emotional, spiritual, mental, and it can have devastating effects. And you create a backlash for yourself. You don't think that you're just pouring in the pot and not gonna get, you're not in the splash zone.
Mm,
So that those were big things as far as manifestations. It was, how do I get money quickly, and and people being encouraged to rework those without actually working on their foundation.
mm,
And it wasn't just money; it was love too. And not doing the proper work. I mean, there are attempts on TikTok, but I see things like, okay, well, shadow work is journaling, right? And I'm like, well, there's more. You can't write about how much you can write about your pain and your devastation. In fact, it's encouraged, but there has to be a practical application of that, not extending yourself to facing your abusers if that's not possible. But 9 times out of 10, your abuser's energy is manifesting somewhere else in someone else in your life. And there may be a softer opportunity to address the problem where, you know, you have trouble saying no to a boss because you had trouble saying no to your mom. There's an opportunity
mm,
without direct harm, at least in my opinion.
yeah.
So those were a lot of the themes: manifestation, um, proof of spirituality was pretty big too. Like, look at me, how do you know I'm spiritual? Pulls rock out of purse, and it was like, well, no, I all I know from that is that your bag is really heavy. I didn't.
You own a rock.
Right. The rest is speculating.
Ooh.
So, but I
Mm,
admire the this is kind of like I admire the exposure, because it's important. First, you're going to get the windfall of how do we make this watered down and tenable for everybody, and then hopefully there will be a push behind that to actually do the research into granny magic and folklore, or what does energy mean? What are your spiritual principles? Um, and go from there. Don't just stop at how much tourmaline can I wear in my body so that I'm not
mm.
impacted by other people.
Oh, well, bless their hearts. I
It's
I'm
kind of like when
concerned.
Ulta started selling witch
I
kits,
I
you know?
see this. I see this in people all the time, and I know that's human nature. I am concerned about this big push toward manifestation. Now, I'm all about manifestation. I love manifestation, but we got to balance that stuff. You know, what kind of person do you turn into if you are just constantly having to use spell work to create some kind of quality of life for yourself? And how much does that speak to the choices you've made in your life? Um, I saw this meme that was quite poignant to me, and it said, "You're not cursed; you just make dumbass decisions." And that can definitely be the case. And I'm all, like I said, all about manifestation. Eric and I developed an entire spiritual path that is based on manifesting positive life changes year after year after year. I believe it at 100%. But when you are just up the butt of the God and Goddess 24/7 to give you stuff, what kind of energy does that set up around you? And so often we think of our divine figures as being parental figures, the great, you know, white God in the sky with the old man with the white hair and the beard, or the little old lady who is got the big boobs, and you just get the hug and the rest. Just we like to ascribe parental assignments to our deities sometimes. And I often give the lesson to my students of who would be your favorite child. If we're going to go with the idea of the divine is our parent, that means we are a child. So, what kind of child are we in this world? Are we the one that's going through the Walmart constantly hanging onto somebody's skirt? I want this. I want this. Can you get me this? No, well, why can't I have it? Well, why didn't you give it to me? Well, why don't I have it? Just beg, 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 asking for stuff all the time. Is that going to be your favorite child, or is it going to be the one who says, thank you for this life that you gave me? Thank you for today. Thank you for the sun coming up. Thank you for the food that I've got to eat when so many other people don't. Thank you for giving me a minute to just breathe outside when the office was really tough today. Thank you for a day where I didn't get a whole lot of phone calls because I was feeling really isolative. Thank you for, just endless, just pick it. Thank you for that one person that acted like they cared about me today. Just saying, just gratitude. Just I recognize and acknowledge where I am, and there are good things about that. And I understand that that comes from a place of privilege, of seeming like nothing bad ever happens, or that, there's people that don't have things to be grateful for. And I understand that. And I'm real sorry for that case. But I've been in some pretty low positions in my life. And I've been in times where I really had to work to find anything to be grateful for. And that's part of the sacred and holy work, is being able to not just be needy all the damn time.
Right. And gratitude gets you so much further. It's a sustainable, like when we're talking about energy, it's a sustainable energy. Exhaustive energy, energy that's never satisfied. Fear, doubt, um, pain, all of those
All
things
that scarcity
require.
mindset.
Right. And that scarcity runs through all of those, so they're just going to keep pulling from you if you're operating and manifesting from those places. But if you're manifesting, or if even if you're not trying to manifest anything, if you're just leaning into gratitude, and love, it sustains itself, and in fact draws more to itself without taking from other sources, taking from you even. So I personally think, probably much like you, like gratitude is a sustainable way to move through a lot. It helps you reframe. It helps you gain a foothold in reality to say, I'm grateful for this thing, and maybe I didn't need the other thing I was trying to draw on, because I actually look around and I have things that I enjoy. I have things to look forward to. That's such a big part of mental health and mental wellness, is having things to look forward to. But you have to know what you have in order to know what you could look forward to. And I
That's
think we
so
skip
true.
over that.
And also, sometimes it's not no, it's just not right now is the answer. And, if we go back to that child mentality, I'm 6 years old. I want to drive a car. Let me drive a car. I want to drive a car. Let me drive the car. Let me drive the car. No, you can't drive a car because you're 6 years old, but you will, and you can someday. Let me have the Red Ryder BB gun. I want the Red Ryder. No, you're 8. You can't have one.
You
You have one
shoot
when you're
your
12.
eye out.
So it's not always about the answer being no. Sometimes it's just that the timing is not correct. And, if you wait and if you're patient, that perfect job does come along, but just not in the place you thought it was going to be. That perfect person comes along, but you know what? They're a redhead instead of a blonde, just.
And there is a box of hair dye on the shelf. My God. If it comes down to that, stay single. Oh, man, this has been just the best time. Thank you so much for the audience participation and the insight. And, you know, thank you, Katrina, for I loved your revelations on spiritual tools. I mean, I could listen to you talk all day, really. But that
Thank
was
you
it.
for being here. I just love working with you, and you know that. So
Yes, I'm so glad to be starting 2022. It's gonna so weird to say 2022 with you
for me,
and to
twas.
bring you all back. Right. I can't, it's gonna be a tongue twister. I'm probably just not gonna say it after this episode. Um, but we've gone over, what it means to work with spiritual tools. This time of refresh and renewal doesn't have to be about goal setting and manifestation, but really coming back to yourself and seeing what's there, and the rest will fall into place. So if you find yourself in this sense of urgency to manifest, maybe pause and see what is driving that impulse to really gain some balance in everything that you do. But as always, we've had a blast with you, and we will be catching you again next Thursday. If you guys have more questions, more insights on what you guys do around this time of year, or anything like that, we'd love to hear from you. Throw them in the comments section, and we'll chat with you next week.
See you next week.
Goodbye, See you
Bye,
next week.
everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.